In this lesson, we'll add a little bit of resolution around the ear hole, begin to shape that area. We'll also add some resolution and geometry around the rim of the helmet. So here we've got the helmet, and I've just kind of changed the shape a little bit. I've kind of cleaned up some of the lines here, just moving those over and matching those up with the side view. Also using Flow Connect and Set Flow, just kind of shaping this and adding a little bit of resolution in there. So using nothing new from the last lesson, just gone ahead and continue to shape that and just tweaked it a little bit. So feel free to do that if you like to better match up the shape that you want. Right now we're going to concentrate on getting this ear hole area for the helmet. So right now, we look in the left view, this polygon is defining the hole, okay, but there's also some geometry that's going on around this hole. It's kind of a raised area, which is also circular shape. So I want to go ahead and scale this up so that it now defines that base, okay, and I can move it a little bit if I want to. All right, and just scale that up a little bit so you get something like that. All right, I'll just move it around just a little bit. Okay, so once we have this defined, we can now go ahead and define that hole. So I want to actually bevel this. So the bevel you can find a number of places, but in our graphite modeling tools we can find it up here under polygons and right here under bevel. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Let's go ahead and bring that out just a little bit, and you can modify the distance here later on if you want. Go ahead and release, and we'll just bring that down, something like that. We'll go in and look at this and say, okay, that's about the right size. Okay, there we go. Now you can also, if you think that the thickness there is a little bit too much, okay, maybe that's a little bit too much, we can go ahead and pull this in. So it's something like that. Now we need to actually create the hole. Now I want to have a little bit of thickness here, so I'm going to go ahead and do an inset, bring this in, and now we don't need this polygon anymore because we do actually want a hole there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just delete that. Right now, looking at this, let's say that we're going to be smoothing this, right? So we don't want a helmet that's all chunky on along the profile, so we're going to be using some sort of a smoothing mechanism to actually do that. Let's just use our NURMS button here to preview that. So looking at that, turning off edge faces, you can see that we do have a little bit of a bump there, but it's really, really soft. So we want to add some edge loops in there, which is a common thing that you will probably want to do when you're doing any sort of modeling. Adding edge loops is going to be something you're going to be doing a lot. And there's a tool here that is going to make your life a lot easier and allow you to really interactively add edge loops very, very quickly. So to access this, we're going to be accessing under the Edit tab here, and we're going to go to Swift Loop. So if I activate this, or just hover over it rather, you can see a lot of the different options associated with this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just activate this in the default, and as I kind of move over any of these lines, you can see that that green edge loop updates, and that's kind of a preview of where that edge will be added if we were to actually click at that point. So you can see how very quickly we can come in here and add some edge loops. So let's say we want to come in and just add a couple edge loops right there. It's just that quick. So if we now deactivate that, go ahead and activate our NURMS, now we can see that that's added a nice sharp edge to there. Now we need to add some sharpness to that point. So I'm going to come in, and I like to turn on edge faces so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And just with Swift Loop, as quick as you can click, you can just add those edge loops. Okay, then you can turn that off. And there you can see that we've got something that is much tighter. Okay, so now what we need to do is go ahead and add some resolution around this rim of this helmet, because we want to kind of bring out sort of a raised area. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do it manually using Cut. And we have the option to activate this, and this is not a new tool, but we can go ahead and activate it here from our graphite modeling tools. And I'm just going to drag across, clicking on these edges, and add a new line here. And as I turn some of these corners, I'm just going to try to maintain that thickness. Okay, so you can see I crossed over and created a triangle there. Okay, so let's just go ahead and complete this, trying to maintain the same width all the way around. You can tell when you're on an edge as your cursor will change, or when you're on a vertex. So go ahead and bring this up, again, we want to turn the corner and then go all the way to the back. All the way back there. And then I'll just right click to finish that. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some of these vertices. Okay. And let me go ahead and exit that. I'm going to grab these vertices and I want to go ahead and weld these together. We can go into our weld settings, dial that up and apply it. Make sure that we have both of these selected with a high enough threshold there. There we go. Go ahead and apply that. And then up here, we want to do the same thing. We'll say OK to that. So we've got those. So now what we've got is a new sort of strip of quads going along the edge. Now all we're going to do is go ahead and take the selection here. Now if we go ahead and select, we could select these manually, or we can go up to our modify selection, okay, and we can go ahead and select the loop, and that will select our loop of polygons here. Okay, so now we have that, we can actually just go in and do a quick extrude. Okay, we can go in, if you want to go into your extrude settings, you can extrude by normal, and we'll take that height way down. So we end up with something more like that. Say OK to that, and now we are building the kind of one side of this. So anytime we extrude anything like this that's going to intersect over with our origin, I want to go ahead and delete that interior polygon. Okay, I want to do the same thing down here, just because we might forget to do that later. Might as well go ahead and do it while it's fresh in our mind, so that we don't have any geometry facing in there that could cause us problems when we go ahead and try to mirror this. So now if we look at this, okay, and we smooth it out, you can see that now we've got this sort of a rim around the base of the helmet there. Okay, and you could make that a little bit wider if you wanted to when you drew that out. It's kind of up to you. But it's pretty clean looking so far. But what we want to do in the next lesson is actually start to add a little bit of detail inside. So we'll create the pads for the helmet. So for that, we need to actually have this mirrored over to the other side, and we need to actually add some thickness to that. So let's go ahead and look at how we can do that. If we want to add a symmetry modifier, that's one way to go about that. So right now I've added that in. You can see what happens if we change the axes. If I go ahead and change that to Z, you can see that it matches that up a little bit. Now our merge threshold is set at a point where it's merging all the vertices that are close enough, but a few of these are not getting merged. And I'm actually not going to mess with the merge threshold. I'm going to go ahead and do that manually. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse this. You just want to make sure that nothing is being merged that you don't want to be merged. Okay, it's a little bit easier to merge things than to kind of pull them apart again once they've been merged. Alright, so now if we go down to vertex, select these vertices, and go ahead and weld those together. And apply that, and then apply that. And then we'll go back to the back, and you'll notice that these are the areas where we had that extrude. And apply that. Okay, so now we've got two halves of the helmet here. So we now need to add a little bit of thickness to this, so let's go ahead and add a shell modifier. And let's create an inner amount rather than an outer amount. So we'll kind of pull this in, just create a little bit of thickness there. Okay, you don't have to go too crazy. You just want the kind of the thickness of the actual helmet shell. And we can collapse that. And if you want to preview that, go ahead and convert that to an editable poly. Smooth that out a little bit. And we've got something that has an inside and an outside. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is actually build out the pads for this helmet. And we can do that using the existing geometry that we already have. So let's go ahead and look at how we can do that in the next lesson.